Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's watch list. Before I get started in the watch list, you can find the room link in the description of the video and in the bio section of social media accounts. I don't see anything on the docket this week as far as Powell, but there is the usual economic data that we usually get in the morning on Fridays, unemployment, stuff like that. But I usually like to look to see if anything is happening during the day instead of pre-market, because I usually look at pre-market and during pre-market. But I'd just like to know if there's anything happening during the trading hours that could affect price. So I don't see anything during market hours that could do that. So obviously some things do pop up during the day from Biden and Powell. I mean, Powell could say something, or Yellen could say something, but they're not on the docket. So with that said, I'll start with the bullish side and the bearish side. I don't have much on the bearish side. I'll have to see what happens with this week with the market. But actually, you know what? I'll start on the bearish side because there's only a few. Roku is one of them. Now, Roku has been selling off since the 490 area. So you can look at the weekly. Usually when it does get to the 490, it likes to sell off. We could see it going to the 355 area. So it could bounce a little bit before going lower. So that, because it's getting pretty oversold on the hourly, so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing like Roku bounce to like 440, then start making lower lows. So kind of like right here, I made two red candles and it popped up, thing to go lower. So we could end up seeing this kind of move right here over here. So be aware of that. I would watch it underneath this Friday's low of 427 for push to 420, 410, 400 would be the big psychological number. If it does manage to break 400, it's probably going to end up trying to find bottom in the 490, 92, 90 area, 480, 390, 392. And you get this area 375. So this area could end up trying to find a little bit of a bounce. So I would, if it does manage to get below 400, the 390 to 375 area could be the area to watch. So there's a couple areas to watch. So that and BA. Now BA just had earnings, it gapped up, then it sold off. We could end up seeing more of a sell-off on BA. So I'd watch it underneath 225 for push to 220 and get a gap fill right here. Well, it didn't really. Yeah, I guess I kind of came close to filling right in here, but I get a little bit of a gap at 217, 215, 210, and you get the 205 area. So I don't know if it will go that low, but we'll have to see. So another thing to mention is that any news or anything that happens in the market as far as surprise tweets or anything from Yellen or Powell or any of the Fed guys or Biden could change the stock's dynamics very, very, very fast. So be aware of the news that does drop. And the gap downs and gap ups do change the dynamics of the play too. So that's why you need to be in the room. Disney is another one. Disney just keeps having this head and shoulders on the weekly and daily. I seem like I am talking about this every week for weeks. And it's done that with other stocks where they actually just talk about them for a while, then finally they actually end up playing out. So maybe Disney plays out this week, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We'll have to see. But under 175 for push to the 172. And then you get this 170 area. Then you get 168. Then now if it gets below the 168 area, that's where it's going to end up having trouble, because there's a gap fill between 168 and 153. So we could see a gap fill here. So also another thing to point out is that on the weekly, Disney is getting pinched between the 178 level and the RCT trend line, which is at 168. So be aware of that too. On the bullish side, pins, there's a lot of stocks that got hammered on earnings, and pins is one of them. I think it's going to end up rebounding. Anytime it gets in this area of the 57 range or 58 range, ends up bouncing. It did over here, so I would expect it's going to do the same thing. I would watch it over Friday's high at 50, we'll say 59. Push the gap support, which is 61. And then you get like the 65 area, then you get the 67, then 70. So I think that we could end up seeing a gap fill on pins this week. So that'd be one to really keep an eye on this week. Another one is Wayfair. Wayfair's just been selling off, and it gets down to this 242 area, and it likes to bounce. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. As you can see on the hourly, it's very, very oversold on the hourly. So I would watch it over 247 for push to 250, 260, 270. It's going to gap fill right here. Up 270 to 275, and you get 280. So Wayfair could end up turning around. It does end up having these strong moves when it does get some momentum behind it. So I have to see about that. UPS is another one. Now UPS could end up going lower, but I mean UPS has definitely got room down to the 180 area to fill this gap. So but it's trying to build support on gap support right here, so that's why I like that. I mean, it's coming down and testing it for the first time. It didn't test it here, but it did here, and usually it likes to bounce a little. So I mean, it could bounce to 200, then end up flushing and filling the gap to 180. So you have to be aware of that. I would watch it over 192 for push to 195 to the 198. 200 be the big psychological number. If it does manage to clear that number, it probably will fill the gap to 210. But like I said, you could just go to gap resistance right here. If it does manage to overshoot a little bit, 200 could probably be the next big area to watch. Then it could end up just filling the gap below. So there's gaps on both sides. Be aware of that. Tesla's starting to look like it's getting ready to pop, especially on the weekly and the daily. I mean, it gets over this, we'll say I could say even 700, 698, 697, but if it gets over, you could even say 694. It gets over that, it's going to push to 700, no problem. 700's been the spot where it's been stalling out, and I think it, I mean, you get a nice cup and handle right here. You get a cup and you get a handle. I think if it does get over 700, it's going to push to 750 real fast. So I would keep an eye on Tesla making a strong move this week. Amazon kind of dumped on earnings. So I'm thinking, you know, it could possibly go down to 32, but I'm also looking at it from the point of view that it could end up having a dead cat bounce right here and try to make a run to the 3,400, but we'll have to see what happens. Amazon will be tricky. It's expensive to play. I don't like playing Amazon that much because it's so expensive. Options is, and unless you play it on a Friday, even Friday. I was looking at last Friday after ER, and it was way too expensive. I wasn't interested. But if anybody wants to play Amazon, you could definitely watch it over the 3360 level for a push to 3,400, 3,450, even 3,500. So Amazon could have a nice little dead cat bounce, but also, like I said, it could drop to 3,200, even 3,100. So even 3,000. But we'll have to see with Amazon. I'd definitely keep an eye on that. SPLK, I mean SPLK. This thing just has an inverted head and shoulders, left head, right shoulder. I've been keeping an eye on this. You can see it on the weekly too. It's very defined on the weekly and daily. If it does manage to get over 145, it's going to push to 150. Now that will be the area it needs to really clear. If it gets over 150, it can probably push to 160, 170 fairly quick now. What ends up happening is that when it does end up breaking out, like right here on the weekly, it does end up taking off really fast. So this is only a couple of weeks where I went from 138 to 185. So it looks like 3 weeks time. So this could end up jumping to 200 really fast if it can get some momentum behind it and it does break out. So definitely keep an eye on SPLK. So that's going to do it for the watch list. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hope to see you in the room, and thank you for watching.